Hi, it's Bridget. I have two more chapters left to go and reading my little book here. Today I'm going to read Your Intuitive, a guidebook for hearing your inner wisdom. Today I'm going to read chapter 5, which is the longest one. So I have to really gut it out. And then probably take like 15 minutes. And then the last one's really short. So I'll do that. But I like doing them all separate so people can chunk it out. Hope everybody's having a good Sunday. It's Sunday today. And I will get started. Oh boy, here we go. The chapter's called Sensing Others' Stuff. You live in a soup of energies. I know it's gross to imagine walking around in minestrone, but it's kind of like that. And with infinitesimal ingredients. We've got corn, bacon bits, small stones, and miso paste in here. Ew. It's kind of great and kind of awful. You must learn to navigate the experience of many inputs, and really, the best practice is focusing on what's right in front of you. According to the butterfly effect, you can feel a fight between two macaws in the Amazon while standing in Milwaukee, but you'll likely have enough going on emotionally at the deli counter where you're ordering a sandwich. We have to mix and mingle with all of our surroundings. A cave in the mountains will likely offer some relief, but even then you may run into hungry bear cubs or an immensely cold winter. I don't think we're here on Earth to bumble along in a fun bucket. But if we were to do so, I would like to imagine a fun bucket being like a bucket seat bicycle carriages you can ride to NFL and MLB games in major U.S. cities. Beep beep. They often blare peppy songs and flash strobe lights. It looks very fun to ride around in that fun bucket. But no, we're here to earn our way, bump elbows, rub bumpers, read scary headlines, and attempt to muddle through. That said, there are many reasons for joy in all of these interactions, especially if you are good at the following. Hearing for others. Sometimes you hear intuitively what others don't want to or aren't taking the time to hear for themselves. Kids do this a lot. Quote, Grandma is standing over your left shoulder and she says you need to lose weight. Well, that sounds like her. A lot of times, the person you're talking to and hearing guidance for just needs reassurance about what they're already thinking about. Maybe they're nervous to admit they're unhappy or are extremely excited about the relationship but want to keep their feelings quiet so they don't, quote, ruin it. Timing plays a huge role in us getting to the promised land of relief on any topic. And some of the best blockers to our flow are fear and no way that's crazy, worries, otherwise known as resistance. Sometimes we help someone or they help us past all the worry. I'll tell you stories. I once went on a cruise to Alaska with my friend. I highly recommend this experience, by the way. Alaska's lovely, so much nature and so much peace all around you up there. This friend and I were getting ready for dinner. It was fancy night, so we were getting all fancied up. She said, Bridget, I feel something is off, like right here, and I can't figure out what it is. She pointed to her upper tummy area. The word brother came into my screen, and I saw an image of a young man in a suit who could be her brother. I said, Do you have a brother? She paused, dropped her shoulders, looked down, and said, Oh my God, I feel so sad. And she started to cry. She took a minute to weep. Then she let me know she did have a brother, and just that day she'd heard a lecture that made her feel more strongly something she'd felt for a while. We were studying intuition on this cruise, and she felt that her brother had a strong dose of it. She felt he would be much happier if he could get in touch with his inner world, consciously. She thanked me. The tears and speaking about the issue helped her feel much better. I simply sensed the word brother, and it helped her push through that issue. She also asked me for help. That makes sensing the person's issue much easier. In another situation, I was in Peru and hanging out in a Maloca doing some healing journey work. There were about a dozen of us, many younger than me. I was feeling a bit bossy that day. I started by telling this young couple that they needed to separate because the girl needed time to herself to feel things. He was distracting her. They honored what I said, bless them, and eventually I found the girl alone and she admitted how she had been super intuitive her entire life but never told anyone. I listened and encouraged her to study and develop her gifts. We were having this discussion when another young woman walked in. She said she wasn't feeling well, kind of nauseous. She sat and we asked her some questions. She didn't say much, but I knew she was Australian and traveling outside of her home country for the first time. Soon the two young ones seemed to be happily chatting, and I thought of getting back to being by myself, so I stood up to leave. As I stood up, the word, quote, fugitive appeared on my screen. Rats, I thought. I debated leaving anyways, but I knew I needed to deal with this message eventually, so I said to the Australian, "Does the word fugitive mean anything to you? Would that sort of describe how you feel?" That's when the waterworks arrived, and the truth in her heart came out. She felt she'd run from her family to escape the pressure they had her under to be an elite triathlete. No one in her family took her to the airport. No one supported her choice to leave. She felt totally alone and afraid, and also very excited on this trip. In each of these examples, I was given a bit of insight to move the other person's process along. This has happened for me many times, both with my psychic sister and with friends who said the right words or asked the right questions of me. However it comes, if it's helpful, how wonderful. And I'll share 2 more stories to show that the help is often not recognized until much later. The same Alaska cruise friend was thinking of selling her home in London. She asked me if I had any insight, and apparently I said something about the area above her flat, or apartment, having an issue. At the time, she figured I was off. She had no structure or neighbor above her, just the roof. Eventually, she did manage to sell her place. Why? She lowered the price for a new law in effect regarding the kind of roofing she had on her place. She said she recalled my comment about the area, quote, above, that it helped reassure her that when that decision came up. One last tale. I told a friend for decades about the power of weightlifting to keep her body toned and strong despite hours of working at a desk. 17 years into our friendship, she called me up. She said she was working with a personal trainer now, and she had lost a clothing size and felt so powerful because she was lifting weights. Like, duh. I didn't have to say that, but that was because she was now on board and with nearly 2-decade-long sales pitch she had been ignoring. There are a few things going on in these stories. First, we don't hear it until we hear it. Second, everyone gets to do stuff when they're ready, not before. And finally, give your brilliant advice and move on. Pushy intuition. Sometimes you can't move on. Your brilliant input is shining and shouting so loudly, your intuitive senses, so loudly in your intuitive senses that you have to encourage someone a little extra. This is a common trait in loving aunties and moms. It can be seen as very annoying. In fact, in our current culture, everyone is very much encouraged to not push on others since we're working so hard on respecting boundaries. But sometimes you feel crazy if you don't push, and I believe there's good in this. Here are some examples. A friend's daughter is basically like one of my own, and since the moment she was born, I felt she would have a global impact. She feels big spiritually. Turns out she's very smart, and also one heck of an artist. Fast forward to age 9, and she's decided to not participate in a talent show at a friend's weekend gathering with a bunch of us from college. I find this out and I am annoyed. I feel in my bones that this child must perform in the show and share her gifts, and that she will be in many shows following this one as a natural leader and powerful soul with a lot to do in her time on the planet. Auntie Bridget now steps in. I find her hanging out in the dark at the cabin where her family is staying and start a conversation about the show. Her reasons for not performing are mushy, general uncertainty laden, and unimpressive to me. I see no major blockers, so I weigh in. Look, kiddo, you have gifts. Performing is a gift to others. You can sing. You have an immense presence on stage, and you need to start now in the process of wearing down any fear you have of getting up on stage and going for it. Don't hide all this brilliance. Give it to people. See you at the show? She gives me a shoulder shrug and an I don't know, maybe response. Ugh, I'm so annoyed. But hopeful and relieved that I said what I could. Then who shows up at the show? Our star, who sings a piece from Les Miserables with such force and beauty that she stuns the crowd and gets a rousing standing ovation. The star. She positively rocks the entire scene. Did I say, I told you so? You're darn right I did. I said, keep doing that. Keep sharing your gift. It's just the life you have to live, so love it. Good job. That was pushy intuition. I couldn't not push on her an extra bit. Would I have let her make that choice? Absolutely, and I did. But I felt called to go beyond her initial resistance with some extra imploring. I have so many more examples. A pushy person got me to attend the college I did by hearing about my acceptance through her dad from my dad. She didn't know me, but she called me and told me I'd be crazy not to go. I changed my reply to the school. She changed my life. A friend, we'll call her friend 1, tried to bail out on a weekend at the beach because another friend, friend 2, got sick and couldn't make it. Friend 1 had a very hard time with change, took it personally, and adamantly stated she would stay home. The chaos was too much for her sensitive soul. After our conversation, I jumped on my trampoline to process my frustration. Then I called her back and I said, "You're not bailing. I'm coming to get you. I will be there in 30 minutes. This is fun and we are having it. Somehow she agreed, and it ended up being an absolutely mega fun outing, and she thanked me 100 times over the weekend for not letting her discomfort with the changes in the plan keep her from making the trip. These are moments where you feel something very clearly and it impacts another. These are treacherous waters. Everyone knows we're supposed to let other people live their lives. I do understand that. I also recognize that those of us with strong feelings in the other direction have the right to state them. Our feelings matter too. Quote, "Look, I know you don't like me right now, but I feel it in my heart that it's worth it for you to really consider this possibility," one might say. Oftentimes, the person we're talking to is afraid, and you're there to help them get over their fears, training from their family of origin, sad memories, societal norms, or whatever is blocking the flow of the moment. There are no guarantees. I rejected many pushy intuition attempts on me that I look back now on and cringe. Job offers, ideas for creative projects, invitations to go out, etc. There were moments where I know in retrospect I did want the same thing on a deep level, but lacked the personal confidence to say yes. After an improv show one time, two 60-something gray-haired women pulled me aside and said to me, "We don't care what exactly you do with your life, but it has to include this. What are you planning to do?" "Med school," I replied. No, 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 no. Do not do med school. Do comedy. You must do comedy," they said. Well, they got their wish 10 years later. I remember loving and feeling so excited about what they were saying to me. Med school felt like lead weights, and comedy felt like feathers floating on the wind. It just took me about 10 years to live out my, quote, safer option, and then finally follow their advice. What is up with these stubborn people? So you're a brilliant, pushy intuitive, and the people you are sharing this brilliance with just don't get it. Oh my gosh, can't they feel the beauty of your words? Likely on some level they can, but they're running their show. Try not to judge the no-sayers. It's physically painful sometimes. Your intuition is screaming at you to coax this person along. Here are some thoughts. Challenge yourself to listen so that you hear what's going on for them. As Abraham Lincoln said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." You can take more time and perhaps learn something that helps you two meet in the middle. Next, some folks really had a rough go early on with the feel it, do it approach to life. It didn't work well. They were reined in. I often think that those who live the most from their heads are some of the brightest heart lights. So bright, in fact, that those around them worked really hard to manage and delete that light when they were young. They may have been a wild kid with big ideas. Know that kid is still in there and very scared, perhaps. Hesitation is real. It serves its own purpose. It gives the feeler time. We don't want to force too hard, whether you're going towards something or turning away. In the case of working with others, you may feel the truth of something for them, but you equally feel their resistance. At times, I even get hot or flushed in my face or feel choked in my throat when I try to push an action. For example, your mom's jeans flatten her booty, but you decide not to tell her because who cares? She says she does, but it's not worth being blunt and hurting her feelings. Or your boss really can't hear today that the team is splitting apart, so you'll wait for a time when telling him feels less brutal. We're not in control of timing, typically. We must be extremely receptive when it comes to the timing of events. Or try forcing things forward and see what happens. Remember, you're learning. Timing matters. We're in the advanced area of this book. We're in this section that assumes you spent some time paying attention to your inner inspirations and putting them to work on your behalf. They can be so exciting when they arrive. I mean, you're going to write that book, marry the hot guy in yoga class, and live on Lake Como when you retire early. Things are looking up. Right now, you're living single in an efficiency studio and you need a new laptop because your old one shuts off randomly. That's okay. All the ideas you've come to feel so intensely are still part of your reality. Hold on to them tightly. And in the meantime, do the next thing that's easy, natural, and in your flow. I like to think of a path of stones, and the next one lights up, and then you step on it. I believe this happens in almost every fantasy novel set in a forest full of nymphs and rebel forces. I also like to think that there are millions of strings that, like the stones on your path, are bright with light. And they all have this story going on as they find their way to lining up together and providing a slide for the next great activity or moment to occur. In the meantime, they don't line up. And those are the other string stories that aren't yours. You are only one of the strings, so be the string that you are. Develop and love and focus on your own world while believing the hot guy in yoga has been thinking of asking you out, but he's also trying to finish his degree in graphic design and wants to get a job and feel more stable before he approaches your glorious beauty. It makes sense when you think of it like that. Feeling the truth. Since we're talking about your intuition interacting with other people and their intuition, I want to put a note on feeling the truth or falseness of someone's actions and words. There are actually studies on the movements and intonations people produce when they're lying. I don't know all about that enough to share with confidence, but I'm not the best at picking out lies since I tend to be very gullible and imagine the best in people. All that said, there may be times when your intuition loudly states that something in your life is not in your best interest. It is not coming from a place of integrity or is downright dangerous. Listen to this instinct, then see how it goes. You'll learn. As a student of intuition, I'm more interested in how it can bring funny, fun, happy things into my life. But it also works hard to keep out scary, icky, mean ones. Here are some ways that I hear falseness. First, I get a pain somewhere in my body or a sense of freezing in my muscles, especially my neck and shoulders. Or my inner eye flashes words like no or crazy or leave. Or I have a desire to back away or physically leave the room when the other person is in it. Here's a story for you. When a family member needed to sell a piece of property, I was brought in to help and provide support. I suggested a real estate agent and felt the rightness of her in that role. I even got chills across the back of my neck when I told my sister about my confidence in this person. For me, that's a big yes. Another family member suggested a different agent. When this different agent entered the room at a family meeting, the entire right side of my body locked in pain. It hurt a lot. I knew this person wasn't a good fit for me, to say the least. I also felt very bad about them being the agent on the sale. But the story played out where I lost this initial, quote, battle, and that right side pain agent took over everything and drove it into total disaster. He was all charm, bluster, and frustration for everyone. Within 30 days, the misfit was clear clear to more people involved, and I was brought back in with the agent I originally suggested, with whom I worked diligently to carry the whole deal over the line many months later. I learned so much from that moment of pain. I would never be willing to allow that different agent to have a try if I knew how important that pain was. That said, I kind of did know. I really did try to stop the whole thing, but was resoundingly and repeatedly shut down. I was learning about my intuition and didn't understand how poignant the message was. Disaster impending, my pain shouted. The whole ordeal became an embarrassing mess that cost me hours of time and stress to clean up. I learned a lot after it was all done, and I was way more committed to my intuitive hits throughout the sales process after my lesson of the initial disaster. The challenge of how to respond to those uh-oh gonzo messages is each of ours to take on. I just know that many people throughout history have avoided disaster, like buying a lemon of a car, marrying a person they weren't safe marrying, getting into a car that would bring them harm, or eating food that wouldn't agree with them, by listening to feelings of resistance. That said, when you have something, quote, bad happen, it can be the perfect guidance to the next positive thing you're meant to find. Destruction can be perfection. It's all up to you and your flow of energy, your desire, your interest, your enthusiasm, your wishing and wanting. The magic carpet ride of life flies on. Forgive or high-five yourself as soon as you move on from anything difficult, knowing that either way you go, you've learned to trust your instincts a bit better next time. I find too that the more time we have spent developing our intuition and living in a loving flow that feels good to us, the fewer tough or yucky things enter our path. We live in peace more of the time. Translating yourself to others. Here is another advanced topic. Once you can hear your inner world and you have had enough lottery ticket wins and hot dates to believe you are on to something good, it can become necessary to gain the skill of translation. namely getting an inspired idea, then expressing it quickly. Say you're at an ice cream shop and you just told your friend that you're tight on cash, but you turn around and see an adorable sweatshirt for sale that says ice cream. The sweatshirt is kind of expensive, and yet you feel uncomfortable without at least touching it and trying it on. You decide you must buy it, and now your friend, who tries to discourage you, will be confused. Why are you buying that thing? They ask. I don't know, I have to, you reply. That simple response can work. It sounds illogical and offers them no justification, yet that sweatshirt is magnetic to you. It may start a conversation on another day with a new friend, or you'll realize later that it reminds you of your grandpa who loved you so much and used to feed you bowls of ice cream. It just feels good, darn it. These intuition not making immediate sense social situations can get more high stakes. Maybe you want to go on a trip and leave work for a period of time when, quote, everyone is counting on you. Or you must walk into a restaurant to check out the menu while your group of friends waits several minutes so you can have a small positive interaction with the host that brightens their evening. We don't always get to know why we feel like doing something while we feel like doing it. This can be difficult. My advice? Allow yourself to be yourself as much as you can and hang out with people who dig intuitive living. Those true approaches will help. Your woo friends will understand when you say, I'm feeling it. You can also get good at dredging up whatever positive, logical information you can reassure them. You can to reassure people you have not lost your senses, but are in fact using your very enhanced ones. Truth is, in the moment, you don't really know the full reason for your inspired move. It's a mystery unfolding, and is probably more magical than you realize. More and more, I simply admit that it's a, quote, feeling I want to follow, and I can give them a logical reason, but I really don't know why. I want to do that thing. It's honest, relaxing, and wakes them up to the fact that I'm trying to live for my intuition as much as possible. Extra woo, hearing from great grandpa. Okay, so we're talking about other people, and I feel it's important to address a topic that I find that some will find creepy while others will feel relieved to acknowledge it. Mediumship. Mediumship is the capacity to connect with humans and animals who are no longer around physically. I know, you didn't read this book for some super woo-woo trip into nonsensical ideas that only exist in scary movies. It's okay if that's where you're at. Or you're like me, and sometimes people talk about their grandpa or dad who died years ago and maybe tell you a story of them when they were living, and you get something caught in your throat, or you get a rush of chills across your back, and you want to scream, they love you. They love it when you remember that they loved you. Can you feel their energy? Can you? They're right here. This happened to me at a party when the hostess, a good friend of mine, showed me her dad's party hat. It was one of those German polka band dark green numbers, complete with a feather sticking out of it. Her eyes lit up and filled with tears of love as she spoke. The appreciation she expressed for his influence on her, and I'm getting chills as I'm reading this, the appreciation she expressed for his influence on her very happy life brought tears to my eyes too. I felt a strong energy pushing me in my back towards her, clairsentience. It seemed to want me to remind her he could be talked to anytime, that he loved her and was so proud of her. Could she believe that? This woman was very Christian, and I believe she would have been maybe open to considering her dad's ongoing interest in her life. That said, I stayed quiet. I don't feel ready for that conversation yet. I tell this story for the people who are nodding their heads right now and looking around to see if anyone else is watching them hear these words. Connection happens. When we get visited by people who are no longer alive, it's okay. Sometimes it happens in dreams. Seek love and peace in it. Only tell others who can hear it. You're not nutso, you're gifted. Hang in there. All right, and thus ends chapter 5 with a lot of excitement and woo there. Thanks for your time being a part of the fun. I have one more chapter to go, and hope you're having a wonderful rest of your day or night whenever you see this. Bye.